Hello, everybody. This is Brian Foster, streaming live on Kardec Radio Facebook page. Today is June 9th. I had to look at my computer to see what day it was. Welcome, everybody. Every week, let me remind you, every week we have this live stream from Kardec Radio. There's lots of people live streaming Kardec Radio Facebook page, and they're also live on Kardec Radio. Kardec Radio is a 24-hour app. You can get not live stream. You can get audio on Spiritism. Hello, Matthew. You can get audio on Spiritism on your iOS, your Apple, or your Android device. You can download it for free. There's no commercials, no nothing, just Spiritism, 24 hours a day. And please also tell your friends about it. And on this live stream on Kardec Radio, tell your friends, please share this live stream. If you want to and look at it later, I put my YouTube videos. I put this video on YouTube and BitChute, which you can go to, and please subscribe and please share the videos that you like, my videos, to other people. It's really good for the YouTube algorithm, so more people can learn and discover Spiritism. Spiritism does so much for you. It tells you why you're on Earth. And where did it all start? Well, just the picture. Oh, wrong. There you go. The picture of the guy next to me. Allan Kardec in the Spirits book. That is the book to start with for everyone. Now, if you want to know more and you want to study more, I suggest you go to spiritismstudy.org. And I've already have some people up, and I call them, and then we talk about Spiritism for an hour. It's not formal study. We don't ask you for any money or nothing. We just talk. We can study the Spirits book if you like, or other books if you like. We just ask questions. It can be free flowing if that is what you like at first. So please, you can find that on my website. Point to that on NW Spiritism, and at spiritismstudy.org. Go to that. You can click on I want to study. You can get an appointment with either myself or Sergio, and we would welcome anyone that wants to talk to us. That would be great. I would love that. So it all started with Allan Kardec, and what a wonderful person he was to bring us the great codifier of Spiritism. Now, what are we talking about tonight? Well, tonight we're talking about more on reincarnation. Let me bring this book up. This is a book I have written, which is The Case for Reincarnation. You can get to that on my website, nwspiritism.com. Again, that is nwspiritism.com. And you can get that book on paperback, or you can also find it on Kindle. Now, one last thing before we start. Well, first, I want to show you spiritismstudy.org. Let me bring this other book down so you can see the whole thing. Again, this is if you want to create an appointment to talk to me, please go and look at spiritism.org. Studyspiritism.org, I'm sorry. And then here is my site. Now, I also want to announce this. I'm going to share this screen. Let me bring this one down. I'm going to share this. This is my Facebook page for Spiritism and the spirit world around us. What I'm doing, I started last Wednesday, and I'm going to start, this is regular on Wednesday. I'm going to have the same time as tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between around the world. I'm going to live stream also on this. And now on Spiritism and the spirit world around us, I think I'm going to start with the more lesser known books by Allan Kardec. I think I might read things from Genesis and Heaven and Hell. There's a lot of interesting information there. Heaven and Hell has information of spirits who were in the lower zone and the higher zone, and it's very interesting, all of, from spirits before the 1850s. Genesis is one a lot of people don't read it and they don't understand it, but there's a lot of hints of what our science was going to find out. And this actually, in Genesis, they are actually talking about string theory before, 100 years before anybody even thought of it. So Genesis is extremely interesting. But let's get back to what we are doing tonight. And it's very exciting. So what we're talking about tonight is on reincarnation, is how do you map out your trials on Earth? Very exciting. So, I'm sure you've heard me say, if you've heard my last time, I've always keep saying that essentially we are in a classroom, right? We are learning by doing. We're in this temporary body, you know, whereas we are an immortal spirit, which our spirit will last. Now, get this understanding of immortality. We will still be around when our sun burns out. That's billions and billions of years from now. When the earth is gone and dead and the sun has gotten to a red giant and absorbed the earth, we're still around. Not on earth, but we're still around somewhere. But since we're here, and you've heard me say we're in this classroom, right? We're learning, we're absorbing new ideas. Hopefully, we're improving our character and our personality. But now, this is what I want to talk about tonight. Did you also know that most probably you are the one that selected your intended coursework? Now, when I'm talking about this really pertains to probably, and I may not have this right. I don't know for sure. So I want to take everybody's a grain of thought. You may know more than I do. If you do, please put it in the comment section or go on YouTube and put it in the comment section or on BitSuit. But most of the people, the souls from the lower zone and below, they have their future on Earth kind of mapped out for them. They get assigned to it. It's like if you're kind of the bottom tier of the class and you go in the next year of school, it's like you're assigned your classes. You don't get to talk to anyone else. So you're going to go here. But when you are in a higher spiritual level, you actually work with your spirit mentors and other people, right? Maybe even your family. You get together and say, okay, I'm going to reincarnate. These are the things that I need to work on. This is the family that maybe will come along, be your children, your uncles, or whatever. And then you also talk to your future partner, your husband or wife, or however that will work. And you agree, hey, we're going to get together, and these are the things we're going to do. I've also read where sometimes a husband and wife, and they've been said, well, and let's say to the husband, you're spiritual, but you haven't really learned on your own. You're sort of leaning on your wife to give you the spirituality side. When things get tough, she reminds you. So it may be a better life for you not to be married to her for one life, right? So these are all things that happen. In fact, I even have a YouTube video as you may not have your soulmate in this life. Your soulmate may be up there looking for you, or your soulmate may be in a completely different area of the world. And I know this happened. There was a book my wife read. It was in Spanish, so she told me about it. And this couple was told the same thing. The husband needed to be more spiritual. So the wife reincarnated in Washington, D.C. as a very poor person, and the husband was going to reincarnate in Brazil. And his parents were members of a Spiritist society, so he would understand Spiritism more, while his wife wanted to learn other things. So they planned together not to be apart in that one life. And it sounds, it's terrible. But you know what? When you're immortal, right? And then you think about, let's say, 80 years, right? 100 years at most. What percentage of that is of infinity? Well, when you divide, it gets really, really small, right? So this is one thing you have to look at. So now that you know, I'd say most of the people listening to me tonight are interested in Spiritism, interested in knowing where they are. And so most probably you're the one that selected your work. Hello, Patricia. So I want to tell you one thing right off the bat. When things get tough and when you're in trials, right, in episodes and drama you don't like, who do you have to blame? Well, it's probably yourself. Isn't that a horrible thing? Is you plan this? Isn't that, if you really think of that and you go, and sometimes I think, why in the heck did I do this, right? Why did I plan this? And it helps you look at things a little bit of humor. Because what happens? Most of us live our lives believing that we exist in the realm of chance, right? Of chaos. Somehow our parents conceived us, we grew up and went to school in a particular location, not of our choosing, but by chance. It was a place where our parents decided to live at the time. Another decision mandated by random occurrences, or so we thought. We go to college or into a profession, or by some whim or happenstance, such as an uncle knowing a person who knows a person. We just all these things go. We strive and we learn through our early adulthood. Sometimes we succeed, and other times we fail miserably. We curse the events that led us to despair. Somehow we survive, and at each step we gather small morsels of wisdom along the way. We detest the lessons we had to learn, but nevertheless, in our hearts, we recognize the value of our accumulated knowledge. But now, as I said before, what if? Now, let's think about this for a moment, because this is life changing. What if everything you've been through was planned? No, not down to the smallest detail, like you're going to take a paper out of the drawer at that moment, but the broad strokes, and sometimes even the minor strokes. Allan Kardec was told, and other spirits were told, that will be amazed on how you are guided, even little things, right, by spirits. But at least in your mind, as this thought experience, the major and not so major of your life have all been preordained and not prearranged by some distant entity, but as I said before, you, right? You. Yes, you are the one responsible for this mess. I hate to tell you, both the good and the bad. So let's start at the beginning. In the Spirits book, Allan Kardec, which he codified the answers to why we must reincarnate. And this is question 132. The question is, what is the aim of the incarnation of spirits? And this is the answer given to him by multiple mediums talking to spirits throughout in different areas, right? He only codified what he saw as similar or almost the same messages from spirits coming through different mediums. This is the answer. It is a necessity imposed on them by God as a means of attaining perfection. For some of them, it is an expiation. For others, a mission. In order to attain perfection, it is necessary for them to undergo all the vicissitudes of corporeal existence. It is the experience acquired by expiation that constitutes its usefulness. Let me stop there for a second. So expiation means when you are going through you are paying for the wrongs you have done in a previous existence. Why is that fair? I don't even know my previous existence. That's not fair. Well, it is fair in this point. In your previous life, you had a character disposition. Let's say you cheat people of money, which I have done in my previous life. Well, I've been told that. You had a predisposition to say, oh, I'm more important than that person, and they don't need bread on the table. They should give the money to me. I need it, right? I've got plans for it. Well, that's in your character, your personality. Now, let's say I'm in this life and I have money and it goes away, right? It's happened to me. I've never been able to keep money, and I haven't gambled or drugged it away or anything. It's always some sort of bad stock decision, which I thought was really a good idea at the time. I've learned that no, I don't get to keep my money. I'm kept into a lower class, middle class, I should say, existence. I live month to month. So my character is acquiring the fact that, one, I don't appreciate it when my money's taken away, and two, I learn to live within my means. So if you look at it from a point of view of changing your personality so you don't do what you did before, it's not punishment. God does not punish. God is love. It's like if your child says, you're punishing me by making me go to school today. No, you tell that child, I'm not punishing you. You are learning. You have to become an adult someday. You need to become a productive member of society. Therefore, you have to go to school and put up with all that. We're being told nothing different. We're being told, sorry, someday you're going to have to be a productive member of the spirit world, of the spirit realm, and we want you to be a productive spirit. So I also want to say that incarnation has another aim. Let me finish the quote, because I actually started reading, but I didn't tell you that I'm quoting again now from what is the aim of the incarnation of spirits? Incarnation has also another aim, namely that of fitting the spirit to perform his share in the work of creation. So this is what I'm saying now, that we become a productive member of society, of spirit society. I'll finish the quote. For which purpose he is made to assume a corporeal apparatus in harmony with the material state of each world, into which he is sent, and by means of which he is enabled to accomplish the special work in connection with that world which he has been appointed to him by the divine ordering. He is thus made to contribute his quota towards a general will while achieving his own advancement. So, I've just put it in other words. Of course, Allan Kardec says it better than the spirits say it better than I do, but you are being trained. Now, what it doesn't say here is, why are you being trained? Because, as I said before, this right here, your brain is so powerful in the spirit world. In the spirit world, thought is action. Spirits get together. They will create buildings, temples, whole new worlds. They will guide the formation of planets. Jesus Christ, the governor of our planet, guided the creation of our solar system. This is the power you have. Do you want someone like me who's immature having absolute power? Heck no. This is why we're going through training. Now, let's go through planning for the new life. In the book Memoirs of a Suicide, psychographed by Yvonne Pierre, a great book. First, I want to say that Yvonne, she is so wonderful, and I wish more of her books were translated in English, but Memoirs of a Suicide, get that book. It's just amazing. Camilo Branco tells about his own life. So anyway, and this is how I write my books, right? And this is in my book, The Case for Reincarnation. What I do is I take all this information, psychographed by mediums, people vastly superior to myself, and I try and put these in kind of here's about reincarnation. Here's about planning your destiny. Here's all the different things about heaven, different levels of heaven. This is what I pull these into. You can understand the process. So this is what Yvonne Pierre said. Oh, this is what a veteran of reincarnation planning said in Yvonne Pierre's book. This is what he said. The planning of the events relating to a reincarnation will be rigorously studied, firmed up, and revised, always in accordance with utmost justice, in fulfillment of the highest expression of the immortal decrees sanctioned by the Divine Master, which explains all the problems that afflict and bound humanity, to each according to his deeds. So what did he say? He says our plans begin with what we must correct from a previous life and what we wish to learn in our next life. It is as if we are in high school looking through all the college catalogs that have finally arrived, attempting to ascertain what our future will be. Now, he explains the basic conditions of planning. Now, let me tell you, he's telling this to a bunch of people who were suicides. In this book, The Memoirs of a Suicide, Camilo Branco, after he commits suicide, he goes to this hospital where they bring suicides together and tell them, this is what happened in your past life. This is why the mission you were given. And next time, tell everybody, don't even think about committing suicide. You're not getting down to your problems. You're postponing your problems. But anyway, this is what he said. The basic conditions of planning are. He said, normally, candidates for reincarnation choose their own trials, the acres of thorns that will decelerate the days of their earthly lives, and where they will get the chance to amend the consequences of their guilty past. They themselves will beseech the guiding powers for new opportunities that will enable them to demonstrate their repentance and their desire to enter a redemptive path that will offer them the chance to correct inferior impulses that drove them to their wrongful conduct. These trials can be experienced in a relatively sound body if the mental suffering is extreme, or in a deformed body if one is stricken by an incurable disease. It all depends on the extent of the offense and the demerits involved. So again, remember, he's talking to suicides who all going to have a much tougher life in their next life. So I'll carry on what he says. So the patients themselves actually sketch out the chart for their future physical body and the plan for the principal and unavoidable events they must go through. Unavoidable. The logical and inseparable effects of the causes created by their infractions, but they are always assisted by their dedicated mentors. I can't stress this enough. Your guardian angel, your mentors, your family members who have passed on or you've never met, at least that you don't know that you've met, maybe your grandfather that passed on before you were born, but that grandfather or grandmother may be helping and looking over for you. So the concept remains for even all of us that we ourselves will direct the trials and the type of physical covering we shall inhabit in our next life. Therefore, you yourself most likely elected the body you're in while you are listening to this video on YouTube or BitChute or wherever, on live streaming on Cardiac Radio. The eyes you're using, right? You chose that color. Now let me talk. Okay, let's get into planning for your body. Choosing your physical body is more difficult than it seems. You know that imperfect nose of yours, kind of like mine, kind of rounded nose? Well, you yourself most probably determined not to have the latest fashion in noses. And how do we know that? So in the book, Missionaries of the Light, psychographed by the wonderful past Brazilian Francisco Chico Xavier, inspired by the spirit Andre Luis. Andre Luis is great because he goes through these books and he's members of all these teams to tell us how, spirits help us, how we are, all sorts of things about us here on the earth. So he's talking to a woman who's actively planning her trials for the next life. And she talks about her reasoning to pick the body that she did. This is so exciting. This is what she says. I have been advised by benefactors here that I should avoid re-entering Earth with flawless body lines. If I do avoid it, I might have a better success in the task I'm planning. I would be grateful if the thyroid and the parathyroid glands were not so perfectly outlined. As you know, and she's looking at a complete detailed chart of how her body, inside, outside, is going to look. And they can actually model their body so they can see what they're going to look like. I sure would. Why did I choose this? I sure wouldn't have chosen losing my hair, but whatever. She goes, I might have a better success in the task I'm planning. So as you know, my task will not be easy. I need to recapture a large spiritual heritage. I must avoid any possibility of failure, and perfect physical harmony would get in the way of my goals. And so Andre Luis kind of looked at her and said, and goes, well, you're right. Physical seductiveness is a real danger, not only for those who radiate its influence, but also for those who are subjected to it. Yes, she goes, yes, I would prefer an unattractive body. I'm not interested in a body like Venus. I'm interested in the redemption of my spirit for eternity. Amazing. So therefore, for those of you who don't care for your body, think hard about what other matters you should be concentrating on rather than focusing on your vanity like I have done, right? You pick the model you are in probably for a very good reason. Now, what would a logical person ask next? Well, how can you pick your body? You have DNA. And the DNA of parents combine, right, to lay the foundation of what your body's going to look like. Good question. And Andre Luis even asked that question. What about the law of physiological heredity, which is DNA? And his mentor answered, it works with an inalienable control upon all evolving beings, but of course it is subject to the influence of those who attain qualities that are superior to the general environment. Furthermore, when individuals interested in new experiences in the physical realm are deserving of intercessory services, the higher powers can impress certain modifications on matter from the embryological development onward if they determine that alterations are needed for the work of redemption. Let that sink in. What is he saying? He is saying that the DNA, even though it's the foundation, the DNA from both your parents is the foundation. It's like you had a house. Let's say you went to a housing tract, and they go, "Oh, we've got 3 plans you can use, but you have all these options. And instead of brick, you can have wood siding, right? This is the same. You have the basic DNA, but other spirits, higher spirits, and also the effect, depending on how powerful you are, the effect of your paraspirit." That's how Jesus was so powerful, right? When he was in the womb of Mary, he actually, and that is why, at first I thought, how can that be an immaculate conception? Well, after reading about Spiritism, a very, very high spirit like Jesus, right? Almost perfect spirit can collect whatever DNA he wants and fashion it just by the power of his being. So think about that. People are actually doing minute surgery on DNA to alter appearances and innate abilities. Now, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, I don't know what does. Is the fact. So it's that things can change. So now, not only do we determine the complete diagram of our bodies, but we also plan in advance afflictions that await us. Andre talks to a spirit who works in the Reincarnation Planning Center in the heavenly city No Solar, and he points out the extent of future planning. This is what this person tells Andre. Here's the plan for the future incarnation of a friend of mine. Do you see some dark spots in the descending colon? Because this indicates that he will suffer from a large ulcer in this area as soon as he becomes an adult. Nevertheless, he has chosen it. Well, now I know I had my kidney stones, right? What exquisite torture. And I think, what in the heck did I warrant to do that experience? It must have been bad, and I most certainly will not do it again. And Matthew says, people might also wonder how he got the Y chromosome while just being conceived of one woman. Exactly, right? I think is because he accumulated all that through just immense spiritual power. So, interesting, remember, when they first found DNA, they said, "Oh, there's this DNA, but most of it, it's just garbage." Right? Remember that back in, they're actually learning more and more about, oh, hello, Sol Souza. Remember how that first thing, most of that DNA is garbage, doesn't really do anything. But I believe, and they're actually learning more and more that this extra DNA that doesn't actually change our physical appearance and stuff like that has something. But I believe that is timed events. Like that person's ulcer, when he has an ulcer, or maybe a person will suffer some sort of other disease, or in my 60s, I will get kidney stones. Those things are events. I think they're placed in your DNA, so your body clock says, "Oh, okay, you're 45. Guess what? This is going to happen." So I think the DNA is just this part of the blueprint. Now, a lot of it is guiding events right outside, but I think a lot of it is guiding inside, and I think a lot of it is locked into your DNA. That's my guess. I haven't read that exact thing in any spiritualist literature, but that is what I believe. Now, so you pick your body. You pick things are going to happen to you in the future, probably by preloading your DNA. So our body is just but one consideration of our next life. Let's talk about planning your trials. So we plan those events that push us forward in an exploration of knowledge. We don't plan our trials to say, "Oh, I'm going to be rich and I'm going to enjoy my billions and my yacht." No. We plan our trials to teach us something. Now, you may become rich because you want to be, your trial is, how do I handle being rich? Can I still be humble and nice? In fact, there's a great example I believe actually it was in the book Heaven and Hell, but I can't remember. But there was this miser, and I think it was in one of the magazines by Allan Kardec. There was this miser, and the spirit was still in one of the houses he used to own. And they had this meeting, and Allan Kardec, I think it was reported on, is why is this miser? Why are they connected so much to this house? And what the higher spirit said, why this spirit was connected to this house, is he was a relative, primitive, immature spirit, let's say. And he said, I want to be rich in my next life. And I go, no, we don't think you're ready for it. No, I want to be rich. And the spirit said, okay, we're going to teach him a lesson. We're going to let him do. It's like having a teenager tell you what they can do, right? We're going to let him do what he wants and see what he knows about it. So he came into the life. He was able to earn enough money to buy the house. He rented all the rooms in one house. He bought another house. He rented all the rooms. He actually lived under the staircase in one of his homes so he could get money. He became such a miser. That's all he cared about was money. That's a lesson, right? They've taught that person a lesson. Someday he's going to be reincarnated and learn not to put so much emphasis on money. He wasn't ready for that lesson yet. He should have listened. If one thing I have learned in reading spiritualist literature is be humble. Do what superior spirits tell you to do. You don't know. You don't look far ahead enough. You don't have the wisdom accumulated yet. I hate to say that because I always thought I did, but I've learned. So let's do an example again from the book Memoirs of a Suicide. So what's happening to his life? His name is Geronimo. What he did when he committed suicide, he actually defrauded his business associates. He lost all his money and he fled the situation he created by taking his own life. He left behind a wife, a son, and 3 daughters, all destitute. Geronimo tells his friends about his plans for his next life. This is what he says. Very eye-opening. I won't be able to have children by not looking after my family, by rejecting halfway through the honorable responsibility of being the head of the household in order to help me ascend in merit. I put myself in the wretched position of not being granted the chance of building a family and being a father again in my next existence. However, in order to mitigate my ugly behavior towards my wife and child, I have promised Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus, the sublime mother of my Redeemer, whose maternal solicitude will rehabilitate my children, and I will employ all my efforts to assist orphan children to somehow build shelters for them and become their guardian as if they were my own. And Soul says, I think to be rich is more harder than to be poor. People change with money and power. And Soul is exactly right. In fact, in the Spirit's book, it was asked the question, what is the hardest trial? And you know what they said the hardest trial is? Exactly what Soul said. It is to be rich. Now, why is it to be rich? Well, when you're poor, you have to be humble. Even when you're like middle class like me, right? You got to put up with fools. Sometimes you work for an idiot company. Sometimes you work for an idiot boss or bosses, and you just have to swallow it. Because why? Because you have to. Because you've got to put food on the table. You have to have shelter for your your family. But if you're rich, you can be rude, and people will still kiss your you know what, right? Because they want that money. They want something from you, and you can be as obnoxious as you like, and everyone will tell you, "Oh, that's a great idea," or "That's wonderful, boss," or "You're an actor or actress. Oh, you look wonderful, right? Oh, that's oh yes, you should tell everybody about the tattoo you got all over your face or something like that. I mean, whatever stupid thing you do, you're going to find someone to say, yes, that was a great idea. So this is why it is very hard to have to be rich in a later life. So that's a great point. Absolutely. So finish on with Geronimo. He has this name because he's from Portugal. So Geronimo had planned his family life to compensate for what he did in a previous life. His friends express happiness in his helping orphans, but they are worried if he'll have the financial resources to follow through. He informs them, this is to show you how complicated life can be. He informs them that at first he'll be rich, born into a wealthy family. Next, he says, because he'll again experience financial ruin. And then he'll become the supporter of many, many orphans. Because when he was rich, he built an orphanage. Now, when he was poor, he'll have to live in probably some little annex in the orphanage and help taking care of the poor orphans. So notice for how each of his major failings, he'll have to redeem himself in one way or the other. Once again, he shall recognize the despair of bankruptcy and the complete withdrawal of all his old friends. He shall deeply feel the pull of suicide, but if he wishes to be victorious in his new life, he will have to resist that urge with all his facilities. Remember, again, we're told that if you commit suicide in your next life at the same age, right around the same time, you feel the urge again, and you're going to have to stop that. So, what have I been saying? Our life is laid out in great detail. We don't have the freedom to not participate in our trials. We have the freedom in our response to events. Therefore, it is much better and more conducive to your spiritual attainment to go in your trials with the attitude of a child, with an open mind and acceptance that all occurs. Remember, Jesus said, come to me, like a little child, right? The little children come to me. It behooves us to learn from each hurdle. And by the way, the more you understand and read about spiritualism, things that Jesus said weren't all just parables. Some of them were like direct, yeah, right? You have to be reborn again to be saved. He didn't mean being dunked underwater. He meant going through reincarnation. You have to be born again. No one's going to come on one life and be perfect like Jesus. No, Jesus went through who knows how many billion lives he went through. I have no idea, but it must have been amazing. He started out like us, an immature spirit. So understand that. Gain wisdom and internalize how this understanding will carry you through multiple lives as you ascend as a spirit. Now, why do you have to go through multiple trials? So, first, reincarnation is an accepted process for spirits. We've just said the need to atone for your wrongs in the next life is well known. But there are other reasons for rebirth as well. The spirit Andre Luis delves deeper into the need for varied experiences and sheds light on the complexities in our learning here on Earth. In 2 books, Missionaries of the Light and Workers of the Life Eternal, both really good books to read, both psychographed by Chico C. Xavier. You can find those on Amazon.com, or you can find those. Go to my website, nwspiritism.com, and you can click on the picture of Allan Kardec, and you can find the books by Chico Xavier, Allan Kardec, Yvonne Pereira on that website. Of course, you can find them at Amazon.com, but I just wanted to tell you that. Oh, hello, Paula. So, to understand the need for multiple lives, even for those who rays of goodness made an impact on Earth in their previous experience, right? Even those who really succeeded in their mission, we need to understand why even the best of us must return to Earth to complete our studies. The most common perception for the need for each successive life is the requirement to pay off our debts, right? I just talked about that, incurred in our previous life. The next thought that comes to us is the need to perform good deeds and be a positive influence around us. While all of this is true, there are also more complex reasons at work. Now, Chico Xavier, who published more than 400 books in his lifetime, and actually afterwards they actually created more. It's almost up to 500, I believe. So, In Andre's first book, No Solar, which is a story about Andre Luis's death and his wandering in the place between heaven and hell, right, the lower zone, as a result of his actions during his most recent incarnation. Eventually, he was rescued by good spirits who took him to a heavenly city called No Solar. So he was tasked by the spirit world to assist various teams of spirits and could relate to us different types and methods of the work that exists in the spirit life after death. And also, I can tell you, No Solar's been made into a movie. It's called Astral City: A Spiritual Journey. One guy actually emailed me. I think he made a comment on my YouTube channel. He said he bought that movie and he watched it 4 times in 3 days. And it just changed everything. And another guy who actually I've been working with on spiritismstudy.org, he doesn't speak Portuguese, right? And his eyesight's not very good. So he couldn't really read the subtitles. He said it just amazed him, just the mood of the movie. So please get that movie. So in the book, Missionaries of the Light, Andre Luis narrates his experience inside the design and planning pavilions of No Solar, right? I talked about that in Planning Your Body. And then this is where spirits draw up plans for uncommon reincarnations. And then here's the term completer. Curious, he asks his friend Salvino, what does he mean completer? This is what he means by completer. It is a title that applies to those rare brothers and sisters who profited from all the constructive potential that their earthly body offered them. Generally, in returning to the physical realm, amongst almost all of us miss significant opportunities while wasting our physiological energies. We wander around doing something useful for ourselves and for others, but sometimes we waste 50, 60, or 70%, and often even more of our potential. On many occasions, we also have the aggravating circumstances of having used the sacred energies of life on unworthy activities that degrade our mind and harden our heart. I'm a certain example of that. However, those who use their physical machines as faithful workers will acquire significant rights in our realm as loyal and productive workers. Completers are free to choose their future body when they return to the earth on missions of love and enlightenment, or they may receive an ennobled physical vessel for continuation of their task on their way to higher circles of work. So when this person talking to Andre uses the term rare, he's doing so in the context of spirits who are elevated enough to earn and use the full capabilities of the design and planning pavilion. So why would these individuals fail to fully profit from the gifts given to them? To comprehend this, Andre wishes to understand the type of person who is receiving preparations for his or her next life. So Andre learns that the design and planning pavilion not only creates the blueprint for the physical body of a reincarnate, but also plans for its future weaknesses. And Andre's guide at the pavilion shows a diagram of future reincarnation of the person. So I already talked about how the person was going to have an ulcer, right? Now, I didn't tell you why that person was going to have an ulcer, because he stabbed another person 100 years ago, and he wants to make amends for it now. So there's a requirement. We all have to pay our debts, right? So he also asked, have you known any completers who've returned to Earth, and if they return with perfect bodies? And he was told, despite their merit, none of those whom I have seen leave chose flawless forms. They requested arrangements for a healthy existence, more concerned with the resistance, balance, durability, and strength of the instrument that was to serve them. But they also asked for measures that would temporarily decrease their personal magnetism, avoiding a highly beautiful physical appearance and thereby concealing the beauty of their souls in order to guarantee the effectiveness of their task. So given their past success and track records of achievement, one would think the spirits classified as completers would have the capability to achieve their goals in any environment. But they did this. They did not want perfect bodies because they understand that living under the rules of appearances when on Earth that other people who were jealous would have such destructive vibrations, jealousy, spite, gratuitous feelings, unwanted quarrels, that they would be bombarded by negative thoughts. We've all seen this happen, right? Have we not, too? Especially very beautiful people who people just love to point out everything they did wrong or they think bad thoughts about them. And especially people who are beautiful with beautiful personality. It's got to be a hard burden. And sometimes it doesn't help you make your trial, right? So therefore, not only do we need to learn to fulfill our missions, but we also must require the methods to deal with success in terms of physical beauty, intelligence, charisma, as well as how to deal with the consequences of our presence in the minds of others. The very fact that we merely exist on earth without any action on our part comes with a host of difficult lessons. Now, there's a need for balance. Henri Louis, in his book, Workers of the Life Eternal, where he underwent multiple experiences at people's bedsides, witnessed the dramas that swirled around these people, right? He weighed in numerous scenes and stories of the people. And he came to this conclusion with understanding their past lives and all that. He says, studying cases of death has enriched my knowledge in the field of mental science. The spirit, eternal in essence, makes the use of matter, transitory in its associations, as didactic material that evolves more and more in the spirit's never-ending course towards integration within the supreme divinity. So what does Henri mean by didactic material in this instance? Okay, first, the definition of didactic is teaching or intended to teach a moral lesson. Therefore, as we continue learning in the spirit world and travel through multiple physical trials on earth, we accumulate moral lessons that in turn influence our physical bodies and the structure of our brain. So I always talk about rewiring this guy as we are reborn. Not only is our intellectual being as a spirit is important, but the physical makeup of our human form is vital for both our present involvement in our planet and to our eventual elevation of spirits. Henri continues to explain his thesis, stating, this is what he says, when we harm matter, we will in turn have complicated the service schedule so that is so vital to our spiritual progress. And in any situation, we will remain at a standstill in order to restore the sublime heritage that is placed at our disposal by the imperishable goodness. Henri is pointing out that destroying our bodies or minds by such acts as excessive drinking or by criminal action delays and would subtract from our accumulating the correct amount of learning to move up in the spiritual plane. Henri goes on to further detail the penalty of such actions. We will be compelled to regenerative work both during incarnation and discarnation, both in the corporeal existence and in the death of our body, both in the present and in the future. No one will successfully reach the peak of life eternal without first having learned the balance to do so. He is saying, he observed, after personally seeing the end of life experiences of multiple people, the passion to hold on to material objects, the regrets of wrongdoing, the terrible physical inflictions caused by alcoholism or drugs, the totality of the effect on the spirit as it withdraws from the body. On the other hand, spirits who led a life relatively free from such actions achieved a calmer death, a faster withdrawal from their bodies. The spirits who did not resist temptation experienced a much harder effort to let go of their physical bodies. So Leanna says, unreleased was considered a suicide. Yes. And that's a good point, because he did nothing to change customs and dietary changes that would have taken his life to full term. He ate, he drank, he also had syphilis. Therefore, you'll see that. Actually, that's why I recommend you'll see that in the movie Astral City in English. You can look it up for Astral City, No Solar. They kept calling him suicide, and he's saying, "I'm not a suicide." Well, he was an unconscious suicide. So, what unconscious suicide, as defined by the spirit world, is when you take drugs, whatever. You're not trying to kill yourself at that moment, but you're killing your body. It's like when you go to school and they say, okay, put a book cover in that book. Don't destroy that book. And you put it in the gutter and you're destroying the book. Well, our body's like a book cover, right? If you destroy your book cover, you're going to die early. So that is right. As Matthew says, eat, drink, and be merry, and be an unconscious suicide. Yes. So excellent point, Liana. So given all he's seen, and Andre saw all these types of people in deathbed. So the people who were tied to material pleasures, who drank, and as Matthew said, eat, drink, and be merry. They just didn't want to go, right? Because they were tied to this physical pleasures on earth. Who can blame them? But the ones who were a little bit smarter than that, who were more spiritual, learned about that. They were able to free because they knew they were going to another plane, the real world, right? The spirits tell us we don't live in the real world. This is a college campus. This is a school campus. I probably shouldn't even give it the name college. The real world, the world we spend most of our lives, our immortal lives in, is going to be the spirit world. So I was going back. So Andre talks about the multiple attempts at learning our corporeal bodies. This is what he says. Hence, the reasons for the complex activities of the evolutionary road, the countless diversities, the multiplicity of social positions, the degrees of ability, and the levels of intelligence on the various planes of life. Now, that should be a wonderful revelation. We all go through, because we need the experience, right? When we become a higher spirit and we're actually doing things, we need to know what everybody's been through, right? We've lived high social positions. We've lived life with riches. We've also been the smartest person in the room. And on the opposite side, we've been very poor. We've probably been the dimmest bulb in the room. And truly, all of this must inspire us to be humble, because whatever social position you are in, you should think that, oh, okay, that guy over there who's kind of in the corner, feeling insecure, I've been there. Maybe not this life, but I've certainly been there, right? I cannot emphasize this enough. This is why we need to be humble and nice to everybody, because we have all been there, right? So for those who believe we only need one life to be pure, is as if we wanted to be the president of a large company without ever working any other job. Of course, we know, and the Spiritism tells us, we must start in the mailroom and work our way up through various positions to fully comprehend how to get things done and how to survive within the culture of the organization. No matter how pious we could have started out as a new spirit, we would still need the required know-how to gain our elevation. Only through rigorous trials do we have the right mixture of beliefs and knowledge to reincarnate with good prospects of success and to serve as valued workers in the spirit realm. When the balance of experience is lacking, we are less able to control the process of reincarnation and control ourselves in a physical form. Hence, the problems we may have at times with periods of depression caused by the inability to stabilize ourselves, because we lack the required combination of experiences to be able to mold our thoughts in the correct manner for all situations. Just like children, as they grow up, they go through this frustration because they don't know how to handle the situations. We are the same in life after life. And this frustration of controlling ourselves and trying to learn how to cope with life is familiar, as I said, to any teenager. We did not know that this is a multiple lives long task. Hence, be content even later in life as we live within the ups and downs. We are gaining valuable training, which will carry over to our next lives in very subtle and probably not so subtle ways. So I hope this helps everyone. In the case, let me bring this book. I've been reading, been talking from different chapters of kind of going through this information from this book, The Case for Reincarnation. And if you want to learn even more about heaven and below and all these places, information from the Reverend G. Vao, and I also have this book, Heaven and Below, which I think is a very interesting book as far as all the information that you have given to us to the Reverend G. Vao on. And lastly, I'd like to recommend, if you want to understand really how one should ascend in your life today, in your spiritual life, what I did is there was a wonderful poem by Andre Luis, had 24 verses and very short verses. And I took that as suggested by another Spiritist writer, that someone should go through this and say, what does, by each one of these short stanzas, what does the spirit world mean and how can you achieve it? And that's what I did in my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism. You can get links to that links will be in my YouTube channel, on my BitChute channel down below. You can also go to my site, nwspiritism.com. Oh, and then Eliza said, I love Andre Luis. Absolutely. Oh my God, Andre Luis, his whole series of books. And actually 2 more were actually translated in English in January this year. And I have a blog on, I list the books in order, so I recommend you read his whole series of Andre Luis books in order. So please share this video, share it on YouTube, and click the subscribe button. And if you want to personally understand Spiritism, go to spiritismstudy.org. You can get an appointment with myself. Oh, yes. So, yes, we need to be humble and nice with people around us. We never know about tomorrow. That's absolutely right. So if you're there listening to this on Kardec Live Facebook streaming, again, we have this meeting every Sunday. I'm going to have also my website, Spiritism Spirit World. We're going to have another live stream every Wednesday. But if you really want individual discussion, we're not going to make you study. No cost. We're not going to make you buy anything. You can get all of that Allan Kardec's books on PDF if you want to. You don't have to spend anything. Go to spiritismstudy.org. I believe it will be very useful to you. I can't recommend his books enough. And then if you're like me and you've read the Bible and you don't understand a lot of the parables in it, the deeper meaning, I also recommend the book Allan Kardec, The Gospel According to Spiritism. It just opened my eyes a lot. It was very, very interesting. So I want to say, everyone, thank you. Good night, good afternoon, whatever, all the time zones around the world. Please ask me any questions. Come to these meetings. I can always go off, as I say, I read the comments as people comment. I love being asked questions. Challenge me. Come and talk to me on spiritismstudy.org if you want. Make comments on the YouTube BitChute channel. Please tell your friends. Share this video with other friends. Get whatever you can, because believe me, the more you study Spiritism, the more you'll understand your life, the healthier you will be. There will be less stress because you'll understand why life is built here to have all these little things bother you all the time. And your trick, right? Your tool not to be bothered is understand why things are bothering you for a very good reason. And then it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I lost $500 to this guy who cheated me in a garage or whatever, but I probably owed him money from a past life. That's what my wife and I always say when we do something stupid. Like, well, that person probably deserved it. We probably took money from them in a past life, or someone like that. So you're more relaxed, right? You can laugh about the little things you did. So anyway, I want to say, everyone, God bless tonight. I've reached the end of my hour, and I just want to say God bless to everybody.